What about the visa mess? Now, as I've been saying, the SC 482 temporary visa is for someone who's skilled, whom an employer could bring in if there isn't an appropriate Australian worker. But that can take up to 15 months to process. Why can't we bring pensioners into the workforce and cut the ridiculous delays in visa applications, and productivity would grow?
So the big issue around visas is two things. One is delay, it's time, takes a lot of time, and the other is cost. It's costing businesses up to $20,000 per person they're bringing into the country under that 482 visa. So I was hearing from a member this morning, Alan, just had spent $80,000 to bring in a welder from South Africa because had to bring in the rest of the family and the like. That's just impossible for a lot of businesses to do. So it's time and cost issues. So there's three ways we can help resolve this in the short term. Migration, which you just touched on. So we'll have a look at that and structure that. Getting the mature workers back into the workforce and improving childcare to get more women in particular into the workforce. They're the three steps you can take. And at a time when we have those 500,000 unfilled jobs, businesses screaming out for labour, a lot of businesses giving up on trying to find labour. We've got to start to pull those levers to get the economy moving. It's like and a lot of people...
It doesn't take a review. It doesn't take 6 months. They need to talk to people like you. They're talking to bureaucrats and they've got it wrong. They've put us in the mess we're in. Why don't we create in us a new essential skills visa and let them in if they have the essential skills?
Well, it's a good point. It's a good question. We've been talking with the Immigration Department around a manufacturing visa, just thinking more broadly. One of the biggest problems is that the system is still working on outdated things called ANZIC codes. I won't bore your viewers with what they are, but they sort of are very limiting in what employers can do. And skills are, and workers now cross over different occupations. They do a lot of different things at once, and our system just hasn't caught up with that. So we have said you've got to review this system to allow the workers we want to get into the country. What are the biggest two in-demand jobs at the moment? Chefs, cooks and truck drivers, would you believe? That's what businesses are wanting at the moment. It's the basic things.
Innes, notwithstanding, let's turn the coin over now, the significant rise in inflation, is the worker to whom we're both speaking now going to be asked to accept wage increases that are less than inflation? How do you adequately reward the wage earner without having an adverse effect on the performance and competitiveness of the national economy?
It's a really good question, Alan. So up until March, the average wage increase in the private sector at that time was 2.6%. That tells you about where businesses were coping. And unions were talking to us around putting forward wage claims of 3% or so. Since that minimum wage case came down, as I said, now the claims have gone through the roof, 6, 7, 8%, up to 12, as I mentioned. That's impossible for a lot of businesses. Some will just have to roll over and then pass the cost on. But for a lot of businesses, they just won't be able to do that. So they're going to be negotiations and they're going to have to be other ways to try to attract and retain labour.